posing a real threat to biological security of our country and the region. On the initiative of the Russian Federation, the UN Security Council discussed this issue twice, on March 11th and 18th. We have circulated documented evidence received by our Ministry of Defense as official documents of the Security Council and the General Assembly. Those are Russian letters dated March 11, 18, and 29. There will be a new letter today. I recommend everyone to scrutinize these materials. Those are the copies of original documents, contracts, communications between the Ukrainian side and the Pentagon with authentic signatures, project documentation, etc. For all this time, we have been seeking clarification from the US side on the true nature of its bioactivity in Ukraine and explanations with regard to the above-mentioned documents. In particular, we asked to clarify why the US Department of State keeps insisting that the US operates no laboratories in Ukraine, while there is a documented proof of Pentagon directly managing these labs, with its subcontractors implementing projects with deadly bioagents. The key question is, why has the Pentagon been so deeply involved in biological projects on Ukraine, contracting the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense, if, as the US delegation claims, all these activities are exclusively peaceful? We have received no answer so far. The US, as well as other Western delegations, have been totally dismissive. They refuse to provide any comment of the evidence that has been revealed, labeling it as Russian disinformation. However, documents speak for themselves, and evidence received by our Ministry of Defense keeps piling up, and it is getting more and more specific. In particular, on March 31, our Ministry of Defense disclosed a list of individuals directly involved from the US side in the military biological activities on the territory of Ukraine. Let me drop you a few names as an example. Robert Pope, then director of the Joint Threat Reduction Program, who came up with the idea to establish a central depository of especially dangerous pathogens in Kiev. He had been actively engaged in the communication with the Ukrainian Health Minister, Ulyana Suprun, thanking her for the admission of the American experts to the Ukrainian labs. This fact the US side continues to deny. Joanne Wintrell, the head of the DTRA office in Kiev, that directly supervised projects to study especially dangerous pathogens, including anthrax, Congo-Crimean fever, leptospirosis, etc. Lance Lippencott, the head of the Ukrainian branch of the Black & Witch, which is the Pentagon contractor company. Its work was brought into question even by the Ukrainian special services, which raised concerns about the threat of deterioration of the epidemic situation in Ukraine as a result of the experiments with especially dangerous infections carried out by the Black & Witch. Others include David Mastra, who is closely associated with another Pentagon contractor, Metabiota, Mary Gattieri, vice president of Metabiota, and, as it was revealed, a confidant to Hunter Biden, which is confirmed by their correspondence. Scott Thornton, who supervised the modernization of biolabs and advised local staff as part of the DTRA projects in Ukraine. Our Ministry of Defense has also received extremely alarming evidence that the Ukrainian side attempted to get an access to technical means of delivery of bioweapons. The Ukrainian company Motor Sich requested Baykar Makina, the Turkish manufacturer of unmanned aerial vehicles Bayraktar, if it is possible to equip this UAV with systems and mechanism for spraying aerosols with a capacity exceeding 20 liters. There is a copy of the letter. The flight range of the UAV is up to 300 kilometers. If equipped with the containers with biological substances such as UAV, such a UAV would pose a real threat of large-scale use of bioaerosols on the territory of the Russian Federation. This is a document. You will see it among the documents that we will distribute. We also have evidence that projects carried out by the Pentagon on the territory of Ukraine put health and even life of volunteers, Ukrainian citizens, at risks. The documentation for the project UP8 prescribed that the, as I quote, minor incidents with volunteers must be reported to the US Bioethics Committee 72 hours after the incident, and serious ones, including the deaths of the subjects, within 24 hours. End of quote. In other words, it allows for a lethal outcome through research program for this project officially, though research program for this project officially suggested only a standard blood testing procedure. What kind of blood testing it was in reality if it could lead to the death of volunteers? We are also analyzing the evidence of the direct engagement of the US political establishment in funding of the military biological activities in Ukraine, providing funds for the Pentagon contractors Black & Veatch and Metabiota. The published communication shows that the goals were far from scientific. For example, the vice president of Metabiota, in one of her letters, I can show you a copy, noted that its activities were aimed at ensuring, I quote, cultural and economic independence of Ukraine from Russia, end of quote, which is, to say the least, quite an unusual goal for a biotech company. Military biological activities of the US on the territory of Ukraine are a violation of the Biological Weapons Convention. Such activities brings up biological threats of global scale, which respect no border and can lead up to a new pandemics, which can surpass COVID-19 pandemic. We see it as our duty to keep you updated on this file, to shed the light on those looming threats. As I said, we plan to distribute a new portion of documents obtained by Ministry of Defense as Security Council and General Assembly document. I would also like to announce that to keep you better informed, we are going to host an informal area formula meeting of the Security Council on 10 a.m. NYT time on April the 6th to discuss a broad topic of the threats to international peace and security emanating from military biological activities in the regions across the globe. So the scope will be a little bit wider than Ukraine. This meeting will be open to media and broadcasted. It will be briefed by the prominent independent experts on bioweapons. We invite everyone to come on board and listen to the first-hand information. I promise you will get much more food for thought. I would also like to inform you that the threat of provocations with chemical weapons is still very high, and we recently distributed a new letter to the Security Council where we are drawing attention to the new information provided by the Ministry of Defense, notably that the Ukrainian nationalists continue to plot chemical provocations, and they are up to blow up railway tanks containing up to 800 tons of chlorine, which are stationed in Kochetok settlement, 15 kilometers northwest of Chuguyev city in Kharkov region. So it could lead to a very big catastrophe, contamination of up to 8 days of an area with a radius of 8 kilometers. These people intend to present this heinous act as a result of shelling of these tanks by the Russian air forces or artillery. So this is absolutely inconceivable with the tasks of our operation in Ukraine. And we would like to reiterate that the use of any chemical agents, including chlorine, against civilian population deserves condemnation in the strongest possible terms. So we are giving a heads up to the UN and hope that it will be taken into consideration. Thank you very much. Maybe one question, and I need to go to the Security Council chamber.
Ambassador, thanks for that. If you're worried about biological weapons in Ukraine, doesn't it make sense to pull back your troops and not be fighting near them? Number one. And number two, can you comment on the attack on the oil tanks in Russia? What impact is that going to have on ongoing
Okay, very
talks?
briefly. First of all, the fact that we started our military operation already led to the closure of these 20 biolaboratories, which represent a real threat to the Russian Federation. And secondly, the attacks on the Russian territory, they just reflect the real intention of the Ukrainian side and the real intention for any peace talks and gestures that could lead to certain openings. Thank you very much.